Welcome back, everyone. It's David. There's still a lot of playoff races to be decided, which will make for an unbelievable Week 17. That said, there were no shortage of storylines that came out of Week 16, including a new Super Bowl favorite. We're going to break it all down, and if you like what you see here, be sure to subscribe and follow Lingo Sports on Instagram. At number 5, the Dolphins should ride with FitzMagic into the playoffs. This is, of course, knowing the fact that they haven't clinched a playoff spot yet and need to get through Buffalo in order to do so. But after the Bills released years of frustration in their Monday night beatdown of the Patriots, they won't have much to play for. They do need to fend off the Steelers for the number 2 seed, but they already said they're starting Mason Rudolph, so that seems to have taken care of itself. Flores has a decision to make in terms of who to start at quarterback. But after FitzMagic's fourth quarter heroics, how do you not trust him next week and beyond that? Hey, just because you decide to start him, that doesn't mean Tua won't be the face of the franchise. Tua's looked great at times, but he's had his ups and downs, and we should trust that Flores has helped him take this latest benching in stride. Because against the Raiders, the Dolphins often sprung to life once Fitzpatrick came in. We spoke about how amazing Mahomes' winning drive was against the Raiders with 1:43 left, while Fitzpatrick led a comeback drive against the Raiders with 19 seconds left. So, does this mean Fitzpatrick is better than Mahomes? Yes, it absolutely does. I mean, he even admitted it himself. In all seriousness, Fitzpatrick has a good grip on this Miami offense. He and Tua have played in the same amount of games. You could argue that Gaskin did all the work on this one touchdown throw, but that doesn't mean Fitz should be discounted entirely. He knew to throw to Gaskin in that scenario and trusted him for a big gain. And his late throw to Mac Hollins, I mean, how did he get that pass off anyway? Well, it's because the Raiders find new ways to shock us with their defensive ineptitude. But also, magic, baby. Winning this week was huge for the Dolphins. They now have 4 wins in their last 5 games. They'd be crazy not to ride the momentum Fitz has given them into Week 17. And against the Bills, what greater storyline could you ask for than Fitzpatrick getting the Dolphins into the playoffs by exacting revenge on his old club? Number 4, it doesn't matter who wins the NFC East. The fact that any of them get to host a playoff game is trash. The scenario is simple. If Washington beats the Eagles, they're in. If they lose, the winner of the Cowboys-Giants game is in. It's remarkable that we're even having this conversation about any of them being a playoff team in the first place. But we are, thanks to the NFL's stupid playoff system. The big headline coming into the season was how the playoff field was expanded to 7 teams, giving only the 1 seed a first-round bye. But what they should have done was fix this broken system that allows a team to not only get into the playoffs, but host a game at 7-9 or 6-10. Imagine how the Buccaneers feel, making the playoffs for the first time in 13 years, and their reward is having to go on the road against a team that they're 4 wins better than. It's absurd, it makes no sense, and it needs to go. What's worse is that it's looking more and more like the Cowboys will be the team that'll win this shit show. Andy Dalton balled out against the Eagles, throwing for 377 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ultimately, he's the quarterback you trust the most out of the rest of the NFC East, since he has real experience being a franchise QB. The best way to fix the playoffs is to shift to the 7 best teams in each conference. In that system, the first-round matchups we get in the NFC, if the season ended today, would be Seahawks vs. Bears, Saints vs. Cardinals, and Buccaneers vs. Rams. In the AFC, they would be Bills-Dolphins, Steelers vs. Colts, and Ravens vs. Browns. Tell me that isn't way better. Or, if you want to keep it as is, with all 4 division winners and 3 wildcard teams, at least make it so that the team with the better record hosts the game. Home field advantage may not mean as much this year without full houses, but they will in the future. So the sooner they do away with this garbage, the better. Number 3, if the Packers want to ensure they remain the dominant force in the NFC North, they should throw the Bears game. This is based on a recent report that said some execs believe the Bears are considering re-signing Mitchell Trubisky since he's playing, quote, some of the best football of his career. They kind of have a point. This is the first time the Bears have scored 30-plus points in 4 straight games since 1965. What Trubisky is doing here is historic. And he continued his hot play against the Jaguars when he scored 3 total touchdowns on them and turned everyone down in Duval into a Bears fan.
Over the middle, touchdown. That's Graham on the receiving end.
Since all the Bears need to do to make the playoffs is beat the Packers, the solution is simple. If you're the Packers, rest all the starters and let the Bears in, thus ensuring that franchise stays mired in mediocrity. The QB class this year is pretty loaded, and if the Bears miss the playoffs, they might feel compelled to select one in the draft and start fresh. This team would have a much higher ceiling if they took a Kyle Trask or a Mac Jones than they currently do with Trubisky. But hey, if sneaking into the playoffs after starting out 5-1 is your jam, then go right ahead and extend him. That's not to say that making the playoffs would be all bad for the Bears. If a playoff run would convince Allen Robinson to stick around, that would be the real win. And with David Montgomery turning it on in the second half of the campaign, that would give their offense some solid foundational pieces to build around. And on defense, Roquan Smith bullied the Jaguars all game long. If he makes another leap next season, that'll be bad news for quarterbacks around the league. But if the Bears make the playoffs and go into next season with Trubisky and Nagy again, well, the Thanos and Gamora meme will be most appropriate. Did you win? Yes. And what did it cost? Everything. Number 2. The Browns have had an amazing year, but if they don't make the playoffs now, then this season should be considered a failure. They had the easiest of tasks. Beat the Jets in Week 16 and you're in the playoffs. Instead, they just saved Adam Gase's job, and now the Jets are one of the hottest teams in the league. Now, it's true that a lot went wrong for the Browns in the lead up to the game. All their starting receivers went on the COVID list and their flight got delayed. It forced Stefanski to hold a team walkthrough in a garage. But you know who was healthy? Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. And how many rushing attempts did they have combined? 15. And how many rush attempts do they have on a crucial 4th and 1? 0. Does that make any sense to you? To be clear, it's a good thing to regard a 10-6 Browns season as a failure. The days of this franchise being the poster child of mediocrity are over. They should no longer receive a pat on the back if they finish with a 500 record. From now on, playoffs are the expectation for this group, not the long-term goal. Besides, as a Bills fan, I know the feeling. I watched the 2014 Bills lose to the 3-13 Raiders in Week 16 to get eliminated from the playoffs. But look at the glow-up they've undergone from then to now. The Browns are capable of doing the same, but fans should still be bitterly disappointed if they don't get a playoff game out of this season. And finally, number 1. I guess we're really doing this. Congratulations to the Green Bay Packers for winning the Super Bowl. Crowning a Super Bowl champion in Week 16 is always a favorite tradition. That said, there are real reasons for Packers fans to feel optimistic if they aren't already. For one, there's a good chance that they'll go into the playoffs as a number 1 seed, meaning the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC will travel through Lambeau. Even without fans, that stadium has a real home field advantage. Few teams are as comfortable playing in the freezing cold as the Packers are. The way their offense was cooking against the Titans, it's almost as if they thought they were playing inside of a dome. But what was most impressive about the Packers' effort against the Titans wasn't their offense. By now, we know what Rodgers and Adams are all about, and the Titans' defense stinks. It was their defense rising to the occasion and stuffing Derrick Henry that was the biggest eye-opener. The Packers are actually right in the bottom half in defensive DVOA along with the Titans, but you wouldn't have known that from this game. They rotated a lot of guys on Henry while their defensive front held firm to prevent him from breaking tackles. Without the running game going, the Titans couldn't rely on their play-action game. Because of that, they did pretty much whatever they wanted to Tannehill. The Packers have already silenced everyone that said they needed to go out and get a receiver. If their defense has turned a corner too, that's bad news for the rest of the league. Over in the AFC, the Chiefs should still be the favorites to come out of there. It doesn't matter how shaky they've looked, they still have number 15. And might I remind you that he overcame double-digit deficits in all of the Chiefs' playoff games last year. Until someone can prove capable of knocking off the Chiefs in a playoff setting, there's no reason to pick against them. But a potential Mahomes versus Rodgers showdown in the Super Bowl should have all football fans salivating.